Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. Today I'm here with a video that I would like to call New Beginnings. So I was thinking, there's so many movies about people that have a new start, a new beginning, and this is also something that we all think when, the year turns around and we have a brand new year. We have all of these resolutions, we have all of these possibilities, all of these new beginnings. I mean, maybe not in 2021 because let's face it, this year's probably still gonna suck, but we always love new beginnings. And I thought about all of those movies that have that new beginning and then everything goes to shit. So I decided to make a video about it.
It's coffee time.
Now I made a list of 10 movies that I enjoy that have to do with families starting a new beginning, or individuals starting a new beginning, or a writer starting fresh. And some of these movies in this list, to be honest, are not really good rated, but it's movies that I enjoyed personally. So here's the tea on some movies that I enjoyed, even though some of them have lower ratings. I still hope that you enjoyed the video, but before we go into those 10 movies, if you love horror, if you love movies and collectibles, please consider subscribing to the channel and also hit the notification bell before you leave so you don't miss any more coffee times. I decided to make this list based on movies that came out in the 2000s. If you love the concept, I can make more videos about this type of movies, but from older years, but all of these ones are from the 2000s. So we're going to do these actually chronologically today. And the first movie that I'm gonna talk to you about, it's a movie that it doesn't have the best ratings, it doesn't have the best critiques, but I remember really enjoying this movie, and that is Darkness, a 2002 supernatural horror film directed by Jaume Balagueró, about a family that is returning to Spain after a long stay in America. Paul and his old sister Regina unpack and settle into their new country home with their parents. So of course, when they move into this new house, suddenly things start to happen, and they take a look into the history of the house to make really dark discoveries about the place. This movie was praised for the cinematography, and I have to say the atmosphere was great in this movie, and that is one of the things that I really love about Jaume Balagueró's movies. That's why I like him as a director, because the atmosphere is always on point. However, I know that there are problems with the storylines and with the plot, but I still really enjoyed this movie. I thought the acting was decent. I really enjoyed, like I said, the whole atmosphere the movie had. It was really nice and dark, so I really enjoyed this one personally. And it's a movie about new beginnings that go wrong. Let me know down below though if you enjoy this movie or not. The next one is probably my favorite from this list because I don't hear too many people talking about it, but I thought it was such a good movie, and that is A Tale of Two Sisters, a 2003 South Korean psychological horror drama film. After being institutionalized in a mental hospital, Korean teen Sumi reunites with her beloved sister, and they return to live at their country home. The girl's widower father has remarried, and the siblings are immediately resentful of his new wife. This movie was actually adapted in the United States as The Uninvited, but I would recommend you not to watch that movie and watch this one instead. So the girls, apart from coming back home and finding this new wife that they despise, they also are experiencing some ghost sightings. So there are ghosts involved in this movie, and I'm a sucker for Korean horror movies. That is what it is. But this movie has such an ending that it's gonna make a huge impact on you if you have not watched it yet, and if you have not been spoiled. It is a really interesting portrait of this family, and there are some images in this movie that are going to stay with you forever. The next one is another new beginning, but this time about a writer, and it is based on one of Stephen King's novellas, and that is Secret Window, a 2004 American psychological horror thriller film starring Johnny Depp, based on the novella Secret Window, Secret Garden by Stephen King. So we have this writer that is going through a divorce and he has a lot on his shoulders. He is having trouble coping with life in general, and he moves to this small place where he's supposed to write his next book and still struggling with signing the divorce papers. Suddenly one day he receives the visit of this stranger that tells him that the book he's writing is actually stolen and he's stealing his book. And I love this movie so much. It's a really good adaptation from a novella by Stephen King. And I have to say this is one of my favorites from the adapted ones, also because, you know, Johnny Depp, soft spot again, but I really did think this was a great psychological thriller, more than horror I would say. But if you have not checked it out yet, I think you should. Moving on to a movie that I think some people might not like. I think in this one people are also kind of divided, but I did enjoy it, and that is The Skeleton Key, a 2005 American supernatural horror film. This is a moody, creepy thriller with some genuinely scary moments and a couple of twists that will take you by surprise. We have a live-in nurse that is starting her new job and moves into this house to take care of a patient in New Orleans, and she starts to make some dark discoveries in that house. Now, even though this movie can be a little bit tropey at moments, I really thought that it was good when it came to the creepiness with the scares, and I really enjoyed myself watching this film. The next one is another one that might not be for everybody, and one of the producers of this film was Guillermo del Toro, so that's part of the reason why I really enjoyed this one, I think, because of his influence when it comes to some of the creatures, and that is Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. A 2010 horror film about Sally that desperately tries to warn her father Alex and his girlfriend Kim that she has unknowingly unleashed a horde of blood-sucking monsters from the basement of this gothic mansion. Even though this movie is very ABC when it comes to the story, you know, a new family moves into this house, the girl goes to the basement and touches or opens something she shouldn't have, and now something evil is on the loose, like, you know, all this tale in the book. But I love the atmosphere of the movie. I loved the darkness, the creepiness. I loved the, you know, the monsters that we get to see, and that is where you see Guillermo del Toro's influence 100%, and I enjoyed it. It's very basic, it's nothing too exceptional, but I really like this movie, so yeah, I just wanted to put it on the list as well. The next one, I think it's a favorite for a lot of people, and I think it's really well deserved that it got a lot of praise, and that is Sinister, a 2012 horror movie about a true crime writer that is on a writing slump. He hasn't had a bestseller in more than 10 years and is becoming increasingly desperate for a hit. So when he hears about the story of his family that was killed in a house, he decides to move into the house with his family because why not? He thinks he's gonna get inspired by, you know, living in the house where people were killed, and he probably finds a lot more that he bargained for. Now, this movie, I know a lot of people didn't like the ending, but this is probably one of my favorite movies that feature a traumatized writer, a writer that is in a reading slump, that needs to write a next book and he doesn't know what to do. You know, guys, I love those tropes, and this one for me really brought it home. I know this movie takes a lot from other films, but I still think that it did a great job with keeping you engaged with the story the whole time. The next one is a movie by a director that I tend to love everything he puts out there, and that is Mike Flanagan, and this movie is Oculus, a 2013 supernatural psychological horror film. The story about two siblings that believe their antique mirror, known as the Lesser Glass, contain malevolent and supernatural evil forces. What this movie really has going for it is that it doesn't try to be more than what it actually is. It has good performances, and it is a little bit more clever than your typical haunted house story. So the story is your basic, this family moves into a new house, and in this new house there is an antique mirror, and the kids, the siblings that we will get to know later on as adults, they basically discover that this mirror might be evil, might be having supernatural forces in it that are causing a lot of pain, trouble, and killings. And so That's all I'm gonna tell you, but I think this movie was really decent. I don't think everybody loved it, but it definitely did. Mike Flanagan is amazing. I love all of his movies. Like I said, he is also responsible for The Haunting of Bly Manor and The Haunting on Hill House, and yeah, I really love his work. Next is a movie that I randomly watched. I think it was on Netflix, and I was expecting your typical haunted house story where, you know, a family moves into this new house, and then it took a turn and I was like, what is happening? Why am I loving this so much? And it had to be in this list, and that is Within, a 2016 horror thriller centered around a widower who moves into a seemingly perfect new home with his daughter and new wife. Now, actually, there is not too much that I can tell you about this movie without spoiling the plot for you. So really vaguely explained, it is about this family that moves into the new house looking for a new beginning, you know, and the daughter starts to realize that some weird things are happening in the house, weird noises, things moving around, and she starts to fear that there is some type of ghost in this house. That's all I'm gonna tell you, but trust me, stick to this movie. The first 15 to 20 minutes you're gonna be like, oh, this is predictable, this is your typical story. Trust me, stick to it, and you're gonna end up loving this one. Another movie about new beginnings, and this time the new beginning of a troubled young boy. And I really did enjoy this movie. Was it perfect? No, but I thought it was worth a watch, and that is The Wretched, a 2019 supernatural horror film about a rebellious teenage boy struggling with his parents' imminent divorce that encounters a terrifying evil. So he is kind of forced to spend some time at his dad's place, and he starts to realize that something is wrong with the neighbors, something seems to be going on. He starts to believe there is some sort of evil forces around, and I really enjoyed this movie. It does have a lot of tropes, it does have a couple of jump scares, but I really loved how they shaped the story and they shifted. It kind of felt like an old school movie in a way as well, which I really appreciated. Now, of course, these are things that we've all seen done before, but like I said, I had a really good time with the movie, and I do think it deserves a watch. And the last one on this list is a movie that I watched recently, but it's also a movie that, even though it starts as your typical horror film, it takes some twists and turns that you're not gonna see coming, and that is Don't Listen, Voces, a 2020 Netflix Spanish horror film about a family that moves from house to house to restore them and resell them until they get to a house and tragedy strikes. So we follow this couple and their young son that are always moving to houses that they restore. Basically, they flip them, they resell them for more once they've restored them, and they get to this house when something happens and their son starts to claim that he hears the voices. The parents start to worry. They call like a psychologist to see what's happening with him, and they even end up calling somebody to check if there are ghosts in the house, trying to figure out why the son is claiming to hear voices. That is all I'm gonna tell you. Again, I'm keeping it vague, even though the synopsis that I have seen online, it's kind of like a spoiler, so you know, maybe don't check that out. But basically, this movie starts like your typical, you know, haunted house, or you think there might be ghosts are speaking to the son, what's happening, and then it just starts to take twists and turns, and it ends up being something unexpected, and that's why I really love this movie. I have said on my spoiler-free review of this film that it's kind of The Conjuring but Spanish. That's kind of like what I can tell you, so you have an idea of what to expect. But I also did not see the end coming, to be honest. I did not see them doing that, and I was like, okay, we're going there. But I really enjoyed this one. Like, from all the ones that Netflix has been putting out lately, this is definitely one that I would say it's worth a watch. Alright guys, so these are 10 movies about new beginnings in general that mostly, or in all cases, went wrong. I hope that you enjoyed this list. Let me know if there's any other movie that follows this trope that you really enjoyed. Let's talk about it in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Please give the video a big thumbs up for support. If you want to follow me, you know, the social media, the links are down below, and I hope to see you all in the next coffee time. Bye.